The Scream Kings are in no way responsible for any encounters with the paranormal, extraterrestrial abductions, eldritch insanity, hauntings, hexes, curses, demonic possessions, cryptozoological sightings, or any loss of sleep from listening to this podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Scream Kings podcast. I'm NJ Gallegos.
And I'm Nathaniel Darkish.
The music, the lights, the beautiful flesh, so pretty and soft. But the smells of it, all that sweat, the perfumes, the lotions, the musk, sex, yes, but with a dash of Rome. Tell me, and don't lie, is the podcast everything you wanted it to be? Good morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Today we have a very, very special guest. The illustrious, the wonderful, the amazing Alma Katsu. So she is a Bram Stoker nominated author of The Hunger, which, by the way, is one of my top 10 favorite horror novels. The Fervor, The Deep, and a Bram Stoker Award winner for The Werewolf. She's also a New York Times bestselling author. She writes historical horror fiction and spy novels, boasting a 30-plus year career as the intelligence professional with the CIA and NSA, and she has a new novel, Fiend, which is coming out September 16th. So, Alma, thank you again for making time in your busy schedule. I know you're out promoting Fiend like a fiend.
Like a fiend. No, thank you. This is so much fun.
How are your travels? Are you having a great time?
It's okay. There's a lot of driving right now, but pretty soon there's going to be a lot of flying.
And then you get the TSA pat down all the time.
Oh, God, I hate that. I feel like I should get a pass for my many years in intelligence. Like, I'm one of the last people you have to worry about, but apparently they don't do that anymore.
It's kind of rude.
Yeah,
I know.
that's just insult.
Tell me
You
about
deserve it.
You should know who you can trust.
Yeah.
Right. So, typically guests of the podcast, we start off with a few opening questions. So I'll volley the first one to you.
Okay.
What is your horror origin story?
That's interesting. I mean, I think it was that I grew up, it all came from growing up in a really spooky little town in New England. And I used to joke that it was the spookiest town in all of New England. And that's saying a lot considering. But our family home was a manse, which is the home of the parish rector, the village priest, so to speak. And it was this old dilapidated Victorian thing that would have weird stains, like blood stains, just seeping through the walls and stuff. That just puts you in that mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's hard to have a more ideal horror background than that.
Yeah.
My walls bleed on occasion, like no big.
Yeah, no big. I mean, I kept trying to point it out to my parents and they just wanted me to ignore it. We even painted over it once and it just bled through again.
Oh, wow.
I know. I gotta think it was a dead animal in the rafters or something.
One would hope, but you never know with those old Victorian manses.
Yeah. So that's my claim.
That's a pretty good claim for sure.
So like, were you then interested in looking at more spooky stuff at that time, or did it kind of develop more a little bit later after that? Because home was so spooky, where you're like, I need more spooky or I need less spooky.
Spooky just seemed to be around me when I was a kid. Because besides that, I was raised a Roman Catholic, which, as my husband pointed out to me later when I dragged him to a mass once, he said, "This is the most pagan thing I've ever seen." And so now I look back and I realize, oh yeah, all of the statuary and paintings and the incense and the robes and all that stuff, and the darkness in the organ music, you know. So my early years, I was just surrounded by all that. And the fact that there were so many graveyards in this town and so many funeral parlors. Like, there was a funeral parlor one block over in two different directions from my house. So it was just like the world to me. It was spooky.
Excellent. So then, as you know, as you have you know had the spookiness all around you, what has come to be like some of your favorite pieces of horror? This could be movies, books. Um, yeah, what are some standouts for you?
Well, you know, I grew up in the era of Dark Shadows. I am old, and I was
Hmm.
very young when that came out, so I watched it first run. We'd get home from school and we'd watch Dark Shadows. And it wasn't until later I realized that that had made like a huge impression on me. So I was very much drawn to the gothic. You know, I love gothic stories. It's also the age when they were showing Hammer films, you know, on Saturday afternoons. So we'd all be watching these endless, you know, vampire, werewolf types of shows. And yeah, I mean, to me, that was horror for the longest time. I started reading Poe at a very early age, like inadvisably young. And I'm not saying I understood it all, but that too, I think, ended up making a big impression. So, of modern stuff, not that it's that modern, I mean, like one of my favorite films is Bram Stoker's Dracula, you know, the Gary Oldman
Hmm.
version. It just, you know, it's beautiful, it's lush, it's dark and decadent, but you know, all in the name of love. I mean, how could you not fall for something like that? Now I'll find out that you both hate it, right?
I appreciate it. Like the costumes at the very least are just ridiculously awesome,
Yeah.
and oh yeah, a lot of the acting is so fun. Like it it doesn't quite hit the nail on the head for what I'm hoping from Dracula as a story, but
Mm.
it does so many things so well, and it is just so incredibly watchable.
So what's a good, what would you say is a really good, you know, vampire movie that you think does hit all the right notes? See, tables are turned.
I
Yeah.
know, right? Yeah, I don't feel like anything has perfectly captured Dracula. I mean, honestly, the
Mm.
newest Nosferatu captured a lot of the tone better,
Yeah.
but didn't hit the same story beats. So I don't know. I don't think I feel like Dracula is yet to be done completely correctly.
Ah, yeah, I like Nosferatu too. It's funny, I sort of feel that way about vampire novels. Of course, I love Bram Stoker's original, but
Hmm.
I've always wanted to write a vampire story, and I haven't really written a I've written a short story that has a vampire hovering in the, you know, fringes. But I really want to write a vampire story, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like you want to be able to achieve so much, it's almost paralyzing.
Hmm. Yeah, especially just because like the vampire in as depicted in Dracula, what makes them vampires is so particular a blend that like nothing else has quite done the same thing. But then there's so much folklore we can pull from. It's fascinating to
Yeah.
look at all of the ways that vampires can be approached. Um, I taught a like horror literature class to high schoolers, and so like as we were doing Dracula, we looked at like a different cultures like folklore for werewolf or sometimes it was actually werewolves slash vampires because there's that line gets blurry, but different things for vampires. Kind of like every day we'd be looking at a different culture, a different take on vampires, and so it's so vast. It's hard to decide what to actually do.
Yeah. Well, you know, the novel that I wrote, The Hunger, which is a reimagining of the Donner Party, that kind of looks at shapeshifters in different cultures, as well as
Mhm.
bringing up what might be considered a plausible, you know, natural occurring excuse for this kind of behavior that we see in the book. But yeah, I agree. A lot of supernatural, I'll say tropes for lack of a better word because my brain's not working at this moment. Um, you know, we see them from culture to culture to culture. These are all very common stories to mankind. And it's just fascinating, I think. But yeah, there's something about vampires, at least maybe in the Western canon, that we've just made them less of a monster and more, we've turned them into other things. And so it's hard to think about writing the perfect book because readers have so many different expectations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it hits as hard as The Hunger when you do take this on, then I will be very excited.
Absolutely.
Oh, I really would like to do one, but I'm just, yeah. I know the expectation to have the sexy vampire is so strong. And yet, I really hate cliche. So when I write, I really try to think of a different approach. And this one's just, like I said, it's almost paralyzed me.
Yeah.
When
I
you
mean,
random question, when you write, are you a plotter or a pantser?
I tend to be a plotter, and partly that's because the types of stories I've had to write are so intricate that if I didn't, it would just take forever to tie all the threads together. So the
Sure.
three historical horror novels, The Hunger, The Deep, and The Fervor, because there's history involved, and some of them, like for instance, The Deep, which is a reimagining of the sinking of the Titanic, it has legions of these rabid Titanic fans that if you get anything wrong, the smallest thing, they come after you, with pitchforks and torches. Yeah. So, there's just so many threads to keep track of. So you definitely, and plus they're all, they have multiple point of view narrators. So keeping all the subplots straight and all that, it just takes a lot of planning. And then the same thing for the two spy novels, almost more, even though I'm not trying to juggle historical fact. So I definitely lean that way. But I got my training, so to speak, in graduate school back, when dirt was forming. And back then there was no genre, right? In master's programs, it was all literary. So they wanted you to, the story had to be organic, it comes from the characters. And of course, you don't, outline your stories. So that's what I was used to doing. And I sort of had to train myself to be a plotter. But Fiend is actually quite different because the whole story just kind of came to me at once. And I just knew, so I didn't have to plot it out. It just came out chapter after chapter after chapter.
yeah, it was it yeah, when a story comes fully formed, it's like nothing else.
It's a gift.
Indeed.
From the ether. So yeah, speaking of Fiend, do you want to tell our listeners, kind of give your elevator pitch, what it's about?
Sure, I'll try. Um, so the fiend is about a family. The family at the heart of this, their name is the Berishas. They're extremely wealthy family, one of the wealthiest families in the world. And we come in and we see the children, the latest generation. They're adult children. They're not, but they're young adults. And the middle child's name is Maris. And she's convinced that she should be the one to take over, not only as the CEO of the family's business, but also as what they call head of clan, that she would be the head of the Barisha family all around the world. And she feels that she's the best suited for this because she is most like her father, Zeph, the current leader of the clan and CEO. And she really thinks that her brother, Darden, who's the oldest child in the family and the only son, is a bad pick because he's just too wishy-washy and he doesn't have the killer instinct that you need. So she tries to convince the parents to pick her over her brother, and this kicks off a battle royale within the family. And the whole thing is complicated by this strange connection that the Berishas have, long-standing, that the family has been associated in some way with perhaps having some kind of supernatural protector on their side. They call it the family blessing, the family protector, but it just seems that over the centuries that this family has been amassing its wealth, that terrible things happen to their rivals. If you try to cross them, these people die. Their rivals' factories get swallowed up in earthquakes or crushed by tsunamis. And so, even though, we're talking modern times now, we don't really believe in these things anymore. this is hovering around the shadows as Mara starts her little campaign. And I don't want to give away too much, but it is a force to be reckoned with.
I loved it. I love the end too. I love
Oh,
the way
thank
it
you.
turned out. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really proud of this book. It's very different for me because my other horror novels were all historicals, and this is my first contemporary. And it's just so different from the other books that I've written. But and I was really trying to get the craft part right. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of the way it turned out.
Yeah, you did a great job. Plus, you didn't have to do all that research that went into it and have people come at you with pitchforks. So,
Was so much quicker.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
yeah. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, my wife, when I told her that you were with the CIA,
Oh.
NSA, she was very, very interested. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, it's really, people are always curious. If they know me from the horror novels, they're super surprised to find out that I worked in intelligence. But if people who knew me when I was working for the government are super surprised to find out I write horror. I mean, the two just don't normally go together, right? But how it all happened is when I was very young, like every writer, I was a reader, and I just assumed one day I'd be a novelist, but I had no idea how this happened. And got a lot of advice that, oh, before you can write a novel, you need to go out and have experiences. So just as a lark, I applied to the National Security Agency, and this was way back when, and I grew up in the Boston area, and nobody even knew what they did, right? But we had heard these crazy stories. So I thought this will be great. I'll go down and I'll just get these life experiences that everyone tells me I need, and then I'll leave and I'll be a novelist. But I stayed for 35 years. I had an amazing career, not at all what I thought it would be. Really, it changed my life in so many ways. But and the thing is, when you started back then, they really did not like you to do anything on what we call the outside, right? Even if it had nothing to do with your intelligence career. So even though I was a part-time music journalist, I had to quit all that. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm not going to write anymore once I hit this certain point with my career. Plus, the writing wasn't going anywhere. But the career was very interesting. And I thought, I made this big commitment. I'm going to throw myself into it. And it wasn't until I turned 40, I decided, I'd like to go back and see if I can learn really how to write a novel. I knew now how hard it was to do something at a very high level. And I knew that in my 20s, I was not capable of producing writing at that level. It took me 10 years to get a book to the saleable point, and that book was The Taker. That was my debut, came out 15 years ago. It did really well for Simon and Schuster, but over time I ended up switching over to the horror. And I didn't write the spy novels until I retired from government in 2017. And my editor at the time at Putnam came to me and she said, I know you've always wanted to write a spy novel. Why don't you give it a go? And so that's why it's so weird. Like a lot of people say, why didn't you start out writing spy novels? Because I had this other crazy book in my head. Plus,
Yeah.
I knew it'd be hard to get a spy novel through the clearance process while I was still working for the government. It's much easier once you're retired or resigned.
Wow. Yeah, that is wild.
You think? But you're like an ER doctor? Is that what I read?
I am, yes.
So that must be awesome for writing horror.
It is. You definitely see a lot of things that you don't expect, and it's honestly kind of a like therapeutic thing because you do see some pretty awful things in the job, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a way to deal with it and I guess entertain at the same time.
Well, that's kind of how it was for me too. When I was an analyst, so most of my career in intelligence, I was an analyst, but the last third, I switched over to research and development. I was a technologist for things that I had done early in my career. It's a long story, and I don't want to bore you all to tears. But in the earlier part of my analytic career, I worked the type of issue, it's called a non-traditional intelligence topic, but so it involved humanitarian issues. This was in the 90s, and genocides and mass atrocities. And I did that for a number of years. And as you can imagine, that is a very intense job. And yeah, it was sort of writing horror is almost cathartic in a way.
Yeah. That does sound like it would have been a bit of a bummer, for lack of a better word.
Major bummer. Major bummer. We all get PTSD, although at the time it wasn't diagnosed, but you're majorly depressed for several years. I knew people who were in charge of, finding all the mass graves in Iraq, for instance, and they all went through it too. And when I saw them, this was a few years after I had gotten out of the field, but I was invited to meet with the guy that was the head of the team. And I saw his presentation. I'm like, yep, that guy has PTSD.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting that writing certainly has been an outlet and helped you also work through some things. I think that that's probably a fairly universal thing for most writers.
Yes, I think that's the best thing about writing. The not best thing about writing is I really firmly believe your first book, you work out that major, or at least you try to work out that major issue you have in your life that you can't solve. That's what your brain's trying to solve, and you write this book about it. And if you're lucky, before the book is published, someone tells you that so that you go and embrace all the parts that are super embarrassing. But nobody told me that part. So there are some things in the taker that to this day, people will give me wide berth because I had put this in the book. And just so many weird emails from people all over the world. Very embarrassing. So just remember that.
Good to know. So what you're saying is, before I start therapy, to give the therapist my first book and be like, read this, you'll get it after that.
Yes, I think that would be a great shortcut.
Can do. It'll be better than a PowerPoint, so.
Man.
Oh, man. Now I'm just thinking about therapy PowerPoints. Well, let me tell you about my trauma.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, definitely. I'm excited that Fiend is coming out. Yeah, to prepare for this interview, I finally got around to reading it. I kept meaning to, but it's the start of a school year, and I'm a high school teacher, so
oh my gosh,
it was tricky to find the time. And then yesterday, I sat down and I just kind of gulped it all up in one go. So that was nice. Which is a highly recommended way to take it in because it's just got that dynamic energy. So
thank you. Yeah, I had hoped that the story was supposed to sort of grab you by the hand and just sort of pull you along, so that you didn't look back too much. And then when you get to the ending, then everything just sort of falls together.
Well, I can attest to that because again, I got it in pretty much within a 4-hour period. I read the whole thing, and it was really solid. It was really fun. It was exciting. It was creepy. So our audience, y'all need to pick this book up because it's freaking rad.
Oh,
and also other books while you're at it. I especially really loved the Hunger.
Oh,
absolutely.
I made the mistake of listening to the audiobook while working as a night security guard at a hotel, and so I'd be listening to it while walking around in the dark. That was bad.
Oh my gosh.
That was a dumb life decision, but it was still real good.
Oh,
did you listen to it on an empty stomach is the question.
Yeah, honestly, mostly.
Oh wow. Yeah, people tell me the weirdest things, they'll listen to they'll read The Hunger while they're camping in the woods.
Yeah,
they took the Deep on a sea cruise. It's like they want to test themselves.
That's genius. Yeah, the Deep would be good to take if it was. Did you ever watch that Netflix documentary Poop Cruise?
No.
You should. It's amazing.
God. It sounds disgusting.
It is, but the Deep would be a very nice distraction from the Poop Cruise.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I did not expect it to go that direction. Okay.
It usually
Mm,
does. It usually does.
okay.
With me. Sorry.
It's all those bodily fluids.
It is. I can't. We're disgusting. Like at Thanksgiving, I just like am talking about stuff I see at work, and then everybody's horrified. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. This isn't normal. My bad.
I feel ya. I just had to learn not to bring it home with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would not believe the text messages I get from this woman sometimes.
I kind of want to.
Just things like finding a live cockroach in someone's ear.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who screamed more, me or the patient.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The only way that could have been worse is if it was a spider, in my opinion.
But see, for horror writers, this is gold, baby.
Exactly. It is. I'm like horrified, but I have to go write it down
Yeah.
so I can put it in a story later.
Yeah, that is great. You got to do a story collection. Tales from the
funny
ER.
that you're saying that. I am planning on doing a medical horror collection that should be coming out sometime later date that has not been disclosed yet.
Way to fudge it.
TBD.
Yeah.
TBD.
No, it sounds great. Don't put it off too long now.
Right. It's happening. Don't worry. It's just life and whatnot.
I hear you.
Well, should we tackle the amazing series that you chose?
First, I'll apologize for forcing you guys to sit through 8 hours of something. You probably don't normally do that for a show, do you?
Not too often, but I mean, Twist My Arm, it's a Mike Flanagan thing. I guess I'll rewatch it.
Right.
I love me some Mike Flanagan. That dude knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
Yes, I do love all his shows.
Yeah, and I thought it was even better on rewatch. Honestly, I got a lot more out of it. So I should be thanking you for forcing me to watch 8 hours of it.
I felt the same way. This was my rewatch too. And I probably rushed through it the first time I saw it because, like you said, I caught a lot of things that I just didn't grasp fully the first time.
Yeah, it's definitely one that rewards that kind of recontextualization of, oh, that's what that was. That's what they were doing there.
Yeah. Although I have to say that the things that detracted from it that I remember from the first time, you know what I mean? Like my overall impression from the first time didn't change that much. I mean, I have more appreciation for certain aspects of it, but like I said, I've listened to you guys' podcasts, so I know you're very good at analyzing shows and scenes. So I think we're going to get into all that. But yeah, anyway, okay.
Awesome.
It's back in your hands.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we were thinking that we can just kind of look at the fall of the House of Usher. I don't know if we actually said it out loud. Yeah, we're talking fall of the House of Usher from 2023. But yeah, so we're just thinking we can just kind of, briefly touch on each episode, maybe some things that were, stand out or I guess the opposite of standout. Any major pros and cons for each one, and maybe especially looking at like, hey, how is it approaching with this post story or that post story, and then just kind of talking about the series in general after that.
Okay, sounds good.
So, first episode, A Midnight Dreary, is a lot of fun. But it's introducing a lot of stuff all at once, and it is a little tricky to follow right off the bat, I will say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think where they show the backstory on the kids, it was hooky, right? Like you could just watch that and get into that aspect of it and not think too much about the frame that they established early on with, the Roderick Usher trying to give a confession to, the detective. But I don't know about you guys. I mean, one thing that I wished there was, maybe I should be saving this for the end when we talk about what worked, what didn't work. So I'll shut up there. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a strong episode.
Yeah, definitely, pulled me in, though it was mostly just because I had a million question marks that were just floating around my head. Wait, so what are all the connections? How did this, what's going on, as far as their legal issues, what's going on, with this company, what is this company exactly? How did they get in control of it? Yeah, there's just a million questions, and yeah, of course, like the series was promising to dole those all out, but what grabbed me with that first episode was, a lot of the style, though. Like the
Mhm.
characters are very strong and interesting right off the bat. You're like, man, I don't know who these people are, but I want to know more about them.
Yes.
They did a very nice job juggling so many very notable characters too, I thought. It definitely draws you in and makes you want to continue watching and learning more about them.
Yes. Although I did remember feeling a little like, especially the first time I watched it, a little overwhelmed, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's
yeah,
better on rewatch for sure
Yeah.
because you already have a little familiarity and whatnot.
yeah. I really like the idea of like adding more characters to the Usher clan, because the original short story is pretty bare bones. It's basically mostly just focused on brother and sister, kind of as the last vestiges of their family. And so it's cool to see, kind of a whole big cast of characters, and have it brought into the modern day with them being a pharmaceutical company and all of that. I really liked all of those ideas, to give us a more modern take on Poe.
Well, that brings up a point that maybe I should have mentioned earlier. Like one of the reasons why I thought we should discuss this is because it's certainly been brought up a couple times in connection with Fiend, because they're
Hmm.
both stories about very wealthy families who have done a lot of terrible things. And but the similarity sort of ends. But one of the things that was an inspiration for Fiend was the Sackler story. But I didn't make the family a pharmaceutical company, for instance. Flanagan did, and I think he did an amazing job there. I mean,
Hmm.
really talk about on reflection, and we'll talk about it in the later, because it really comes up in the later episodes. But yeah, he did a pretty masterful job there. Um, anyway, sorry. I just wanted to throw that out there in case people were wondering why. What's the connection between Fiend and Fall of the House of Usher?
Yeah, no, I really loved, as I was reading Fiend, to kind of have a similar itch being scratched. But yeah, but of course, yeah, it is a very different kind of story. It's more about their internal um, competition with the family. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. Uh, yeah, and so it's fun to watch how things play out in Fiend. But yeah, that kind of the rich, powerful family that are in control of this mega corporation is such an interesting thing to see, because that is so alien from so many people's experience. And so it's fun to kind of get a glimpse into what that life would actually be like.
Yes, it
and
was
and
not great.
and Fall of the House of Usher also, yeah, really gives us that with a very diverse set of family members, which is kind of fun too. That it
Yes.
they're not all directly involved in the pharmaceuticals as much. That kind of each of them has their own wing of this big company, which I thought was also a really smart move.
Yeah. I mean, because they had, with so many characters, you end up having a lot of ground to cover. And you don't
Hmm.
want them to be repetitious. You want them to each have their own identity. So, it's really easy to follow their story and not get lost. Yeah. Which maybe brings us to Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah, yeah. So episode 2, Mask of the Red Death. So this is our very interesting take on that classic Poe story, which in the original is much more Plague visits the party at the end. Essentially, the Mask of the Red Death is a presumably terrible disease that's going to kill everybody, but instead we get nice acid rain. Oh, acid sprinklers. Ooh,
I know, that
you
was
could never
brutal.
unsee that.
The it always gets me. Did you guys ever watch Dante's Peak?
I,
I never did.
I can't remember. I'm so
Oh,
old. I can't remember.
It's so good. So if you're into disaster movies, definitely watch it. But it's about a dormant volcano that ends up erupting in this small town. But there's this part where this family is trying to escape, and the volcano has rendered the like river or lake or whatever acid, and the grandmother like jumps out of the boat to help pull them to shore, and it's just like eating her legs. And this is what, like, it's always ruined me. So whenever I watched this, I was like having flashbacks to Dante's Peak.
Oh,
So you guys should
wow.
watch it. I think it's Pierce Brosnan.
That sounds
I think
right.
Linda Hamilton might be in it.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds marvelous. I don't know why I missed it. But I don't know about you guys. I did really like this episode, even though it is so visceral and, again, like you said, the characters, they're very individual. So the youngest son is the one at the heart of this particular episode. And I thought he was well drawn.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Our party boy. He's trying to ingratiate his way into the family business by, yeah, saying, "Hey, I want to have a club. I want to, you know, show that I can, throw, big parties and like that. That'll be my part of the business." And yeah, so to as proof of concept, even after getting shot down initially after his pitch, yeah, he throws this secret party in one of their warehouses, and oh, how convenient! They have a big old tank of water, no other thing,
Right.
um,
Don't check it out.
that they hook up to their sprinkler system, because things are going to get real wet and wild
Yeah.
during this party,
One,
and
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it just turns into a giant puddle of melted flesh where one person blurs into another person in the most harrowing way.
One interesting thing that I didn't pick up until this rewatch was, originally I thought it was just sort of framed as, he's this bad boy and he's representing everything that's decadent and that
Mhm.
was the evil part, right? But he mentions that what he's really after is the footage of people doing, crazy sex things that they can use later for leverage
Mhm.
on other people. That really proves that maybe he does deserve to die, right? It's not just that he deserves to die because he's a party boy.
Yeah, and I agree that that's part of like what makes him so interesting is that he is not just like the party lifestyle and stuff is a big motivator for him, but ultimately it's the control.
Yeah.
And because he's the youngest, he has no control. And so what better way to show, Big Brother who's boss? Well, secretly inviting his wife to the party.
Right.
All of those kinds of things. It's really about him, yeah, trying to seize that control, trying to be able to have leverage over everyone else. And it's interesting to watch that destroy him and also like, another 500 people and a giant horrifying mass of flesh.
Yeah.
I also just absolutely adored Verna's monologues when she was talking to Prospero. Like, she is just spellbinding.
Yeah. It's great writing. Really good
Yeah,
writing.
absolutely.
Yeah, and just the costuming in this section, as it's this cool party and everyone's, at this masquerade, and then her coming out as, yeah, the Mask of Red Death, and it not being, like old depictions of the Mask of Red Death at all. Usually it's, I don't know, Vincent Price with a kind of a goofy, jester mask or something, but this was something else.
Yeah. Well,
It's alluring, it's interesting.
what's distracting for me though is, at my age, I look at some of these older actors and actresses and I think, oh my God, how do they keep looking so good? I mean, the Verna character, she just looked amazing. And I don't know, she maybe is in her 50s. Yeah, I was just so jealous. It makes it hard to really lose yourself in the show.
You're just jealous of her skincare routine.
Right, that she can keep herself in such great shape. It's hard.
Yeah, she's unreal, honestly. We were just talking about how she was in Son-in-Law. That was like one of the first things I remember her being in, and she literally does not look like she has aged.
Wow. Yeah, she's made some kind of deal with the devil, I guess.
Is that all it takes?
Yeah, this is the bad part of me as a horror writer. I should be saying, yes, let's summon the devil. But I'm like, no, there is no devil. There's no deal. It would be nice if it were that easy.
I think a lot more people would win the Powerball if there truly was. So.
Really? That's a great point.
Yeah. Well, that would be a fun story to write. 50 people winning the Powerball because they all, made that Faustian bargain, and that's how they all get screwed over. Is that it actually isn't that much money because so many people have done it.
Perfect.
I like that. That's good.
But yeah, you can't make a deal with the devil. Faust taught us that.
Right. Wouldn't stop me though.
Well, should we tackle episode 3, Murder in the Rue Morgue?
Yes, let's get into some ape-like shenanigans.
Oh yeah. So this episode, we could talk about this later, but I'm going to talk about it now. I didn't want Camille to go so soon because I absolutely adore her, even though she's one of the most awful human beings ever.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's funny. I was just thinking that right before you spoke. Like, it seemed, I'm looking at this, that was only episode 3 when she, exited the show. Yeah, I felt like there was more to the character they could have developed and shown us, but I guess somebody's got to go next.
Yeah, I because it does go in the birth order, correct?
Does it? That makes sense.
I thought, but I don't know. It just made me depressed because I absolutely adored Camille, and I love just how nefarious and just plotting she was, so calculated. The other thing I want to know, how do you get that assistant job?
Really? Boy, those kids, I just felt so bad for them.
Yeah, but they say if you love your work, you never actually work a day in your life, right?
I don't know. Have kids changed that much that would be like an appealing job? I guess. Great social media content, I suppose. But
yeah,
man.
I mean, you'd be terrified the entire time, but I guess you'd be thrilled.
Aroused.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Yeah. The other thing I liked about this episode is I think they did the chimp part really well.
Yeah.
The visual on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I when I knew it was the murders in the Rue Morgue, when I watched this the first time, I was like, but they're not gonna like have it be the chimp be the murderer like in the original story, right? And then no, they actually delivered on that way more successfully than I expected, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it is a shame that Camille goes this early in the show, just because she the way that she manipulates and spins everything is like half of the fun in these first few episodes, honestly. Just because she is such a watchable character, though she is despicable. I also love that, and this is just like a fun little thing, but I saw online, that the actress, so Kate Siegel, was talking about like what went into like why she has the silver hair and all of that.
Oh.
Do y'all know why she did
No.
that? Apparently it came from watching the movie The Incredibles when she was younger. She just thought that this character in The Incredibles who has the long silver hair, I guess Mirage, I think is the character's name, was just like the coolest, hottest woman. And so she was like, yes, I'm going to talk my husband into having me have silver hair in this one.
Oh, wow.
It looks really good. It looks
Yeah.
great.
And the other thing is, even though she is like manipulative and and horrible and everything, she's upfront about it. She's the one that doesn't pretend that she's not horrible and manipulative. It's her job.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that too. It was sort of refreshing.
Yeah,
I
I
agree,
did
yeah.
enjoy that. Like in, Prospero, she, instead of mourning her sibling's death, she's immediately thinking, how can we capitalize on this? How can we get sympathy for this? How can we further the family's social standing and whatnot? Uh, it's just fantastically awful.
Right. I mean, she doesn't pretend, and you got the feeling that maybe the other ones were pretending to agree, to a degree, because they had been upfront about, well, he's the youngest, he's a brat, he doesn't know what he's doing, the bastards are always at a disadvantage, and then as soon as somebody dies, they're all like, oh, oh, that's so sad or whatever, pretending that they wouldn't murder him if they had had the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one thing I wish there was a trigger warning, which sounds kind of ridiculous since we literally just talked about people being eaten by acid rain, and that didn't bother me, was in Leo's loft with his partner, the murdered cat that's kind of setting up,
Oh, yeah.
a later episode. They could have trigger warninged us on that. Come on.
On the cat?
Yeah,
I mean, if it's a Poe show, you should know this is coming.
I know, but I'm still going to complain about it.
And I thought it was, yeah, I mean, I remember this on this rewatch, kind of bracing myself for it and then realizing, oh, it's like more fake looking than I remember. So I guess it didn't bother me as much, but it does make me wonder what the hell is going on in your ER?
You really don't want to know, but it's a lot of meth usually.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that explains, yeah.
Everything.
I love your question. What the hell is a Thor's hammer made of? I was wondering that too. Like, why isn't he's going at the walls? Why isn't it snapping in half?
Right? Like, why aren't we making all tools out of this?
Yeah, whatever it is. I have to say, of all of them, though, Leo is probably my least favorite character. I don't know why. I just had a hard time connecting with him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, getting into the Black Cat episode, yeah, he just doesn't have that much to do, I guess. Like he seems to exist to do drugs and be sketchy about it, and then to have his mental breakdown. And like the actor is excellent, but yeah, I just felt like they didn't give him enough to work with, maybe. Because yeah, like I've seen some real tour de force performances from him in some of the other shows, especially like Midnight Mass. I thought he was incredible.
Right.
But yeah, he has a great Black Cat style breakdown, convinced that the cat's in the walls, which I really enjoyed watching. But yeah, Leo's kind of not that interesting.
Yeah.
He does have a great accent, though.
He does.
He does.
Yeah, I like the accent. I really enjoyed watching, I think it was at the beginning of the episode where, was it Madeline goes to the bar, where the bar was, where they, made the deal with the devil, and there's a spray painted raven where the bar used to be. It's like on the brick and whatnot.
Yes.
A little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah, that was nice and creepy.
I like a nice Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just like the ways that we see Verna popping up in different ways, even more at this point. I really enjoyed her being the one who is selling the cat, the replacement cat, and all of that was really cool to see as well.
Right. It was unexpected. I mean, she was almost coming off as this sort of sweet person who volunteers at the vet clinic vibe, and then to see her turn. Yeah, really, really well done there too.
Did you see her little necklace too? It had like a little bell or something on it.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I liked that. Liked / did not like, just because eyeballs kind of gross me out. I hated whenever the cat scratched Leo's eye and you could just see that like corneal abrasion, like bleh, I did not like that. And then whenever he loses it and that he's kind of going after the cat and whatnot, and it's flashing between the Black Cat and Verna, and her eyeball is just hanging out of her head. Ugh. I've never actually seen a patient like this, but I've heard stories where people that have like thyroid disease that they'll end up having their eyes like proptosis kind of thing can actually pop their eyeball out of their socket and then
Ugh,
put it back in.
ugh.
I know. It gets me.
Or the story you told me about that dude who ripped his own eye out.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that happened.
In some kind of crazed hallucinogenic state, I hope, not
I
on
would
purpose.
think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is just the PSA to everybody, do not do drugs.
Man, when you brought up the thing about the cornea, it reminded me of a story my sister had told me once, and she was the scribe for this eye doctor. And a guy, an older gentleman, came in once and he had a fish hook in his eye. Somehow he flipped the fish hook right into his eye.
Oh,
I know, that must have been pretty gut-wrenching. But anyway, sorry, I don't know why that just popped into my head.
no, I love it. Keep it coming, keep it coming. The worst injury I've ever seen to an eye was a person that I think that they were like messing with their bike chain and it like snapped and broke and it hit them in the eye and their like vitreous humor was coming out
Oh.
and whatnot. Yeah.
Ugh.
This is why they don't invite me to like dinner parties because this is what I invariably start going on about.
Well, they're just hypocrites because they want to hear it.
Yeah, it's true.
They do. They really do. That's why they read horror, right?
Or
Yeah,
invite.
yeah. The 3 horror writers are sitting here going, wait, but I can use this.
Absolutely.
Go on. Wait, give me more details.
How did that vitreous humor look as it was oozing out of the eyeball? No.
Kind of white jellyish.
Ew.
Yeah.
Horror writers, we are something else, aren't we?
We are. Man, I'm so glad to make your acquaintance now. If you're okay with it, I'll just start sending you questions about.
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, medical things. What would this look like?
It makes all of that training worth it if I can answer such things,
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as an ER doctor, I would imagine you see some pretty good stuff that other people don't get to see.
Yeah. Well, and it's the dumbest stuff that gets me, like blood, guts, like that stuff doesn't get me as bad as like whenever we have like joint dislocations or whatnot, and it's like the noise and the feeling of putting those back in.
Ooh.
Like that's the stuff that gets me.
Ooh. Well, because you probably have to do it with your own hands, right? And
Yeah.
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 Now, if you're
Appropriately, speaking of all of this medical horror, our next episode is the Telltale Heart.
And I don't want to disappoint either of you, but the Telltale Heart is the only Poe story I've ever read. I know. I'm
No.
the worst.
I read them all, but when I was young, and I don't remember the details of many of them except the few that I've read more recently. So, yeah, I'm relying on you, English teacher, to
Yes.
to keep us honest here.
I'll do my best. I've read them all, but yeah, not all of them are always as top of mind. I have most recently taught The Black Cat.
Mm.
That one is a lot of fun to teach to students and watch them realize with abject horror what's happening.
Very nice.
Though it does sometimes, but I do have to trigger warning those kids first because there's always at least one kid who's like, I can't handle that one. Nope.
Wow.
I'm like, well, go sit in the hall and think happy thoughts, and then I will read the story with the rest of them.
Man, I'm not used to being around kids, and so I hear stories of what it's like, for teachers and that sort of thing. I just feel like the young are another species now. They're so unlike what it was like for me to grow up. So,
Yeah, it is dramatically different from when I was in high school. It's interesting. Just year to year, it changes. It's wild.
Anyway, to get back, I really liked this episode. And maybe it's because, like you had said with Leo, that he didn't have a lot of, levels to him. There were a lot of levels to this story, and they interconnected with each other's stories a little more. And that might have I think made it more satisfying to me. So for instance, oh crap, no, I can't think of her name. The Victorine, yeah.
Yeah.
That her work, we find out is important not just to make the family money, but because, the patriarch has this condition and he's really relying on her to pull this Hail Mary off.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea of her medical research being tied to what, the ushers actually need for themselves. And I loved the, modern medical take on the original story, with the beating heart actually, in this case, literally, yeah, still kind of beating, or at least, there's a reason for this sound.
Mm.
And I love the way that it had already been kind of worked in like throughout previous episodes too, just the little chirping noise sometimes. And so like once you finally see it all come together, it's that moment of just, oh, that's what that is. And
Yeah.
it's the heart just trying, the machine trying to force the heart to beat. Oh, so good.
Yeah, and it was pretty messed up too of Vic to so essentially they were not passing the animal trials, so there is no way they would ever get approved for human trials. But when does that ever stop an usher from doing whatever they would want to do? And she's recruiting a patient who coincidentally is Verna, to practice to put the telltale heart, the mechanical thing in. And I love that she essentially went mad, turned on her significant other, Allie, who was the heart surgeon, I believe. And when she wouldn't, give in to her demands to just go on with the trial, she turned on her. She then turned the knife on herself in front of Roderick. So I think that was probably the most brutal of the kills, just because Roderick sees it with his own eyes, and then he also sees the death of any chance that he had to deal with his own illness.
Yes. I mean, it was interesting to see, how all that pressure on her ended up manifesting itself, as you just described, that she ends up taking the life of the woman she loves, takes her own life just because she is not going to be able to make her father happy, the, you know, her daddy. Um, and the other thing I just liked how ironic it was is that, they're duplicitous. They're the family that is with their drug company. At the end of the show, they admit, that they knew there was problems with Ligadone, their flagship painkiller, but they just went ahead, for it anyway. And now here they are, he's not going to be able to survive because her duplicity on the heart device, right? That it really didn't work. And the only reason that
Mhm.
they could keep the chimps alive was because they were pumping them full of adrenaline. That it's finally, that duplicity is finally catching up with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a poetic justice for sure.
Yeah. So overall, I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, and I also love how, when we are looking at kind of the flashback, when we see young Roderick and young
Madeline.
Madeline, it's, yeah, the, we see the kind of earlier version of the company, and that they are in a way like fighting against that same sort of thing that they become, that becomes the main way that they become so prosperous. And so I love seeing, more of the downfall, because they start, fighting up, against this like really crummy, guy, Griswold, right?
Mm.
Um, who is running this company in this sketchy way, and they're, fighting more against misogyny in the case of him, but seeing how that, I don't know, it feels more satisfying of a fall to watch them fall from such a good height, I guess, trying to take out this bad man.
Yeah, but at the end, and I realize I'm jumping ahead a bit, I feel like it was a little bit of a twist. Like in the beginning, they made them sound, that Madeline and Roderick made them sound, like they had some morals, which
Yeah.
when you look at them as kids, how they were um, cheated out of really having any kind of inheritance or meaningful life because their father because they were bastards and
Mhm.
their father refused to take responsibility for them, and so you think they're going to be moral characters because these immoral things were done to them, but by the end you see that the twist is that they were just fighting to be the most immoral, like,
Yeah.
and that they had to cheat and deceive someone as immoral as Rufus Griswold, and they did get the better of him.
But yeah, they did it by being worse than him,
Yeah.
which is
And
so much more ironically satisfying. The irony is just dripping, by the end of the series.
yeah, I think Flanagan in his writing did a very good job sort of concealing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because you really are kind of rooting for the younger versions of them for so much of it, and especially looking at the relationship with Annabelle Lee and all of these other things. You're like, oh, like it's going to be taken away, but you want to cheer for them, and
Yes.
then by the end of it, you're like, no, you got everything you deserved and more.
Yeah. Also, I thought the actress who did who portrayed the young Madeline did an amazing job, really.
Yeah, yeah, really, really stellar work.
All right. Should we do the next episode, Goldbug?
Yes. And
So,
Goldbug is such an interesting story to work off of because this is like Poe's longest story, and it's like I don't know, it was the loosest connection to the idea of the original story. I will say that.
Hmm.
is it actually called Goldbug, his story?
Yeah. So his story is the Gold Bug, and it's basically like that's where the character that was played by um, oh my gosh, sorry. All of the names are leaving my brain, and I should absolutely have all of this straight. So Mark Hamill's character, Arthur Pym, appears in Goldbug, if
Oh,
I
okay.
remember right.
And it was about
No,
cryptography, right? I mean, it had something to do with crypt
yeah,
systems.
and it's like this whole thing about going and exploring, and it didn't really have much of a real connection to the original story, but it paid off in really interesting ways. I love watching how you know we get to see a lot more of Juno at this
Hmm.
point in the character or her character arc because she's just on the sidelines, but now we kind of understand a little bit more of what she's all about, and which pays off really nicely at the end of the series.
Yes. And it was a nice counterpoint to Tammy, which I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I know I kind of dumped on Leo earlier, but I also was not very fond of her. We see her
Hmm.
drawn out more fully in this one, and so we have more of a sense of why she's motivated to do the things she does. But up until this point, she's just so unlikable. And I should
Yeah,
not be talking about unlikable characters because I think all the characters in Fiend are pretty unlikable, but you are fascinated by, I hope, how they got to be that way.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah, she was just so despicable, the poor Bill. Like
Yes.
he kind of reminds me of like a golden retriever. He just wants to make her happy and whatnot, and he is just damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
that the actress who plays Tamerlane is so amazing. Like she really sells that awful of a character, and just everything I've seen her in is she has such range.
She's great, yeah, because she's the nun or whatnot in Midnight Mass, right?
Well,
Right.
yeah, like the school teacher,
Yeah,
manipulative, awful lady. But then like in the life of Chuck, she is like so like charming.
really.
Yes,
Wow. I'm going to have to watch it just for that.
yeah.
Yeah, because I can't believe it.
Life of Chuck, by the way, totally not moving away from horror altogether, but still Flanagan. And doing Stephen King. So good, so good. Like I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's
Wow.
I would say it is probably in the top 5 King adaptations.
Wow. Okay,
Mm.
now it'll be on the list. You know, where I live, I'm in a very remote area of West Virginia, and it's like a trek just to get to a movie theater, so we never
Mhm.
go out. So I have to wait for everything to come on streaming, so
Yeah,
I'll
yeah. I just ended up buying it on online because it's available on streaming now,
Oh,
and
is
yeah,
it?
it was worth it.
Okay, great. Then I will do it.
Let me think. So one thing I liked quite a bit in this episode is I felt like they used green quite a bit. And I imagine to like represent greed, but maybe I'm reading too much into that. But the lights in Tamerlane's apartment that are kind of showing in Roderick's old house that's abandoned, her dress at the
Mm.
launch and whatnot. I really like that touch.
Yeah, visually it was very interesting, and visually I think, as you said, is very cohesive. I'm looking at our notes here. I do think there was a lot going on in that episode. um I see you here, you noted the mirrors, which all comes in at the end. I mean, the end of that episode and how Tamerlane dies, I thought was really interesting and really well done. Some of those shots, I'm looking at them and I think, how did he get that shot? How
Yeah,
much CGI is in this shot? Your question about the mirrors too. How many mirrors does somebody have in a?
It's obscene. Like that was a lot of mirrors.
It's a lot of mirrors. For someone who doesn't like herself very much, that's a lot of mirrors.
Right, right. Although I guess it's like that interior design thing. It just makes it look bigger. But I think it's kind of like a play on vanity. But
hmm
I loved the end too, where she hits the. Well, I love that we have a mirror on top of the ceiling, the bed, because you know what that means. But how she
Except it's
hits.
loveless, right? It's a loveless
yes,
marriage, so that was
Yeah,
very ironic.
is that's what I kind of wanted to get into. So like the they hire the escorts and they kind of play. She watches Bill with these escorts pretending to have just like a normal marriage and whatnot. So she likes the idea of intimacy but can't actually do it herself. Is that pretty much what that
yep,
is? Yeah.
That's how I read it. I mean, yeah, that it was just somebody who's so divorced from her feelings, she cannot express them, even if she can locate them, and that, she's, especially for intimacy, that she has to watch it being done. That really, makes you feel so bad for Bill, especially, and then once you realize that his feelings seem to be really genuine for her, and he's willing to do almost anything to make her happy, but that's an impossible task. Um, but partly I didn't quite get it either, that she somehow was making it erotic just watching this
Yeah.
woman, yeah, talk to her husband.
Yeah,
yeah. I
it was
mean,
odd.
I think it's just kind of maybe being some sort of critique of that sort of Instagram goop uh, culture of hey, it's this appearance of perfection, and and the biggest way she lacks that perfection is just having normalcy. And so basically, because everything else has to look perfect and seem perfect, then ordinary is exciting, I guess.
Mm,
I don't know,
that's
but
interesting.
yeah, it's hard to like frame that in a like clear thesis of what was being done there. Um, but yeah, like I feel like I kind of get that ultimately it's trying to say like if everything needs to seem so perfect, health, wellness, all of these things that are being shown to us, and I love that she is basically just Gwyneth Paltrow, you know, selling us goop. Um,
Yeah,
that it is so similar to that, but is the idea of a normal life is overwhelmingly attractive.
that's a great point.
Wow. Yeah. I do have one nitpick
Yes.
because why not? So they kind of start setting up Freddy's demise in that he has his wife Maury, who, you know, she had the acid rain, she's in the ICU and whatnot. He brings her home and he's giving her the new Fortunato paralytic, which is like a derivative of Nightshade.
Mm-hmm.
So, few things.
Tell us.
Yeah. So Nightshade, I mean, it wouldn't work like that. Like, it's not. That's not how its mechanism of action is. It's like so a derivative of that would be like atropine. So we give it to people that have like heart blocks to help with that. We also give it to people that have gotten into like organophosphate poisoning, you know, so bug sprays, things like that. So it wouldn't work as a paralytic. It's just not something that would happen. And you know, he's giving Maury this paralytic and she can't move or anything, but she can still see, blink, and breathe. Like anything that you would give like that's going to paralyze like your diaphragm. Like we have to intubate people, put them on a ventilator. So it's just like it wouldn't work.
This is fascinating. And just in the few lines that you have said, makes me think of so many more questions that I want to send to you.
Feel free, seriously.
Wow. But you know, nightshade is such a pretty word, first of all. And then, second of all, it's just something that most people are going to recognize that they know. It's like this dual use technology on one hand. You know, potatoes are in the nightshade family and you can eat
Yeah.
potatoes, you know, but we also know that it's poisonous. That I think it just has like all these romantic, maybe false connotations to it that it makes it almost irresistible to a writer. You know,
Yeah,
that
like
you
it's
just,
like kind of gothic, it's sexy.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my complaint.
No, it's good to know so people won't be going out there trying to give nightshade to their spouses.
No, I mean it would work as a poison, but it's just not going to paralyze you.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. What he did to Maury, I mean, I think for most people, certainly for me, I'm not afraid of much, but one would be being trapped in your body and being aware. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
that was just horrible.
Yeah, I'd say this is definitely some of the most like powerful horror to me is just that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard of locked in syndrome?
I have heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think that would be the worst fate that anybody could have. Yeah, it's you I would have to look at all the exact like, you know, how it happens and whatnot, but essentially, yeah, you're locked into your entire body. You can't move anything. The only thing you can do is blink, but you're aware of everything that's happening around you.
That was one question I had. If that was supposed to be a paralytic, why could she still blink? But I guess what you're saying
Exactly.
is that it does happen. I mean, a
Well, that's
condition.
more of a like a brainstem issue. So I
Okay.
think it spares like your cranial nerve that allows you to blink and whatnot. But like you would have to be maintained on a ventilator and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, because when we intubate people, you actually have to like either tape their eyes shut or like put eye drops in there, or else they'll dry out because they're not able to blink or do anything like that on their own.
Oh, see again. I'm learning so much from you.
I'm just
Learning
so
and
happy I
growing.
studied. I'm so happy I studied.
Well, we're in the home stretch, guys.
Yeah. So, the pit and the pendulum. Let's talk about the teeth pulling because ugh.
Yeah. And putting it in the Altoids tin and you have to have it rattle around, like, come on, why would you do that to us?
Well, it's
Like-
relatable, I guess. Everybody has an Altoids tin.
That's true. That's true. And I don't know about you guys, but like one of my major anxiety dreams is like my teeth being pulled out or falling out. So
Oh,
That is actually apparently like one of the most common anxiety dreams out there.
wow.
the other one is that I like didn't study for like I had a class that I didn't go to for an entire semester, like some sort of math class that you can't BS, and then I have to take the final.
All the time. I mean, I'm old and I still have that dream. Probably
So
because
rude.
when I was an
So rude.
undergraduate, I actually did that, like not
Oh,
go to classes
gosh.
and then walk in and find out it was the midterm or something. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, it
gosh.
was horrible.
Talking about PTSD right there, right?
Yeah, it was good training. But yeah, that they're at this point they're really, just like poking the sensitive parts, right, for viewers, pulling their
Mhm.
teeth out and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
But yeah, w- I liked seeing how the pendulum was brought in. I didn't expect it to be revisiting the warehouse
Mm.
as where that happens. I will say I felt like it would have been fun to see one other element of the story, which is kind of basically the Spanish Inquisition being brought in would have been fun,
Mm.
No one ever expects it.
right? So I mean, obviously probably not the Spanish Inquisition, but it would be fun to see, kind of more of that idea of some sort of inquisitor being brought into this story specifically for Freddy. Um,
Yes, because there certainly is, a lot this family could be questioned on, and maybe in a more like personal or deeper or more way than we were getting with just the courtroom scenes, which were a bit more high level.
yeah, yeah. So seeing that, even if it was just kind of more police interrogation or something, would have been, and then that being more directly tied to the pendulum, I think could have been fun to see. But but regardless of that, yeah, I felt like his kill was pretty harrowing to watch. I mean, at the point that it happens, you're like, oh, thank heaven, finally, this guy's dying. Yeah, turns out, I felt like he was benign until you see what he's doing, to his wife, and then you go, oh yeah, no, this guy super deserves it.
Yeah. And I liked Verna's talk to him during
Hmm.
the death part of it. I just remember that as being, really well done,
Yes.
particularly on the actress's part. Yeah. But at this point, you are getting, at least I felt, you're getting a little exhausted by all these
Yeah.
deaths and trying to see how it's going to pan out and tie back in with stories and all this. I have to say, I was kind of rooting for the end here.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if this series might have worked a little better if it had just been, maybe one episode fewer or something.
Yeah.
Drop one family member, or give us two deaths in one episode or something. Just because, yeah, at this point it was feeling like the end of a marathon, which I didn't expect to be kind of, yeah, this ready for it to be over.
Right. Well,
Um, I really also like, seeing this idea of the reason that Roderick ends up with Juno. That was such an interesting element of the story, and I thought it was very satisfying to finally understand like what that relationship was all about.
yes. And it just felt so bad for Juno. She's like one of the few nice, honest,
Not awful people.
yeah, not awful people.
She's just trying so hard to be like the cool stepmom and whatnot, and everybody hates her. It's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
point,
that
I'm sorry.
and oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, and the actress does such a good job of being this like interesting and sympathetic character. She's really good.
Yeah, she was. I really liked how they emphasized at the very end of her arc that it's her strength. They think she's just this junkie or ex-junkie that's, disposable in some ways, but it's her strength that's going to get her over what, Roderick tried to do with her.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
and I
feel like
just
she was a little like analogous to Bill. Like, she actually I think loves Roderick and whatnot, and he married her more just kind of to, oh, look at my ligadone, and my wife takes it, and look at all of my accomplishments. Like,
Yeah, it was almost like a stunt.
yeah,
mhm. But yeah, but I think to him, yeah, he thought he was marrying his success. That's what he was doing. He was marrying himself essentially. He didn't actually care about her. He was, but to him, he thought, oh yeah, no, I care about her, but I care about her because she represents what I've done, and that is
Mhm.
a fascinating way to look at that.
Right.
Because yeah, up until that point, I didn't get it, and then when I made that connection in this episode, I went, "Oh, yeah, this is symbolic of everything that he's achieved and everything that he's built." And so marrying her was just a was was his way of marrying his mountain of success.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, part of what I thought was going on there, but they didn't really push it in the story was, sometimes you get guys who marry women that they feel are, beneath them because it makes them look like, a martyr. It makes them look like a hero. Oh, I've taken
Hmm.
this fallen woman and she was, she had been a junkie and all this. But he didn't really play it that way, although he certainly came off as insincere, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of uh, being married to this woman. Yeah, that there was something going on.
Yeah, yeah. The marriage wasn't about her; it was about what she represented,
Mm.
which is yeah, such an interesting way to really finally get, I think, one final piece of insight onto who Roderick really is.
Mm.
Yeah, at least for me, that was like a moment where I just went, "Oh, okay, I finally have wrapped my mind around this guy, and man, what an awful person."
Yes. Yeah, that was like the nail in the coffin.
Hmm. And finally seeing just kind of the end of his relationship with Annabelle Lee, understanding kind of what happened there is also makes you really hate that guy.
Yeah.
She
Well,
is so nice.
you can tell he has regrets about it because one of those like his hallucinations is her showing up with the kids, and he's just so happy and overwhelmed with emotion, and then it goes wrong. You feel a little bit bad for him.
Yeah. One thing that it would have been nice to understand, but they don't have all the time in the world, is how the hell he ended up with her.
Yeah,
If she was so nice, was he drawn to her because he thought she was going to redeem him in some way or save him, and he just couldn't change his stripes? But yeah, they did seem like such an unlikely couple.
yeah, especially because like it seems like they started out, you know he hadn't truly committed to being an awful person yet when they started out together, and I think that was the cost that he had to pay to get what he wanted, was he had to sacrifice Annabelle Lee for his success.
How sad.
Yeah, when at the end of his life he's just like, oh, but I actually wanted her. But did you?
Yeah.
You didn't show it. You
Right.
cheated on her constantly and was awful. um okay, so the Raven, the end. So yeah, it was fun watching the Cask of Amontillado scene. I liked seeing that actually fully flesh out.
Yeah. It was good seeing. Yeah, they did a great job with Rufus at the end, how he acted, how they did it up. So Casa of Amontillado is one of my favorite post stories, and it's one that I referenced in another book that I had written. As a matter of fact, in the first book, The Taker, they do
Mhm.
wall somebody up, and you would not believe how many questions my editor and agent had over the mechanics of walling somebody up. So I thought they did a wonderful job with the brickwork, just saying.
Mhm.
Because it really looked like they were doing it, and it's harder than you think, and it takes longer than you think. So I'm just saying, from a technical point of view, I feel like they really handled that well.
It looked really professional, honestly.
Yeah.
I loved how Madeline put on that brick, "You are so small," just like it's like a final middle finger to Rufus Griswold.
Yeah.
Loved it.
So he'll know forever.
Yeah, it's a lot
Exactly.
harder to hate Madeline than it is to hate Roderick, which is a shame because she is honestly, in many ways, just as villainous as him.
I think so. I mean, she's very upfront about what she wants. What she wants is very greedy. So maybe we're more sympathetic for villains who are at least unabashed about what their goals are than ones that seem to equivocate and hide behind their and not really want to show that they're bad people. I don't know, maybe. I mean, I think she was pretty bad, but very upfront about her wants. Maybe if they had fed a little more backstory, because she did talk about being married once, which was a surprise to me,
Mhm.
because I thought she was a gay character.
I thought that too. But I thought her and Verna in the bar, whenever they shared the New Year's kiss, like I felt like there was a lot of chemistry there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe she was bi.
Totally. I mean, who wouldn't be though for Verna?
Well, the other thing too is at the time, society would expect her to marry a man, and so maybe she did cave to just that expectation, and it just didn't work out. I mean, but
Mhm.
it just feels like her backstory was definitely not investigated at all. We just saw her presented in a certain way. It didn't change very much. It was handled masterfully. So some of what she and Roderick were doing to Rufus Griswold was hidden a little bit, but I think overall her wants, her tone, her direction stayed very consistent.
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like we were kind of uh, denied one of the more interesting parts of the story with how little we did get of more of her backstory and kind of tying things in. Because yeah, it just seemed like it was always in conjunction with Roderick with her rather than what does she actually want? What is she actually up to?
Right.
Yeah, I did want more of her. Like I wouldn't have minded a little bit less of some of the kids if I had gotten more of her.
Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Did one thing I enjoyed as well in this episode is it was kind of like a nice bookend. They meet Berna in the bar, New Year's, 1980, and whenever they kind of seal the deal, they're drinking that gold encrusted cognac that probably costs more than all of us make together combined in 1 year.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing that Roderick is drinking on the very last night of his life. I liked it. It
Yes.
was a nice touch.
Did she say something about it being the kind of drink? I can't remember, but it seemed to reference that it's would be something you would drink, at your end. The other thing too is it's such a gross symbol of excess, right? Four
Yeah.
million euros for one bottle of cognac. I mean, it just you couldn't get more evil than that, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if it actually tastes any different, honestly, than just your standard stuff, or if it's just the illusion that it's expensive.
Right. The
You
illusion
know?
makes it taste better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm more like a $20 bottle of wine tops person, so I don't know.
Same. Yeah. $5 even. I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. I might stop at a box, but I'm not going to say I would.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
I will say that the series would have a different feel if it was ending with a box of wine.
Yeah,
Right?
from
That would be
Aldi.
honestly kind of like a hilarious way to end it, though.
That's how I'm going to go out. Box wine.
Take a note, take a note.
Yeah.
Man. But there are a lot of things about this episode to like. Um, I see in the notes you brought up the scene where he sees the bodies just raining from the sky, and Vera's telling him, that's his legacy, that he just murdered millions and millions of people, and for what? And it's at that moment when I thought, Flanagan really did a good job here indicting the Sacklers and making it come across in a way that anybody can grasp.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
one of the frustrations I had with the Sacklers is that even though now, after Dope Sick and Empire of Pain and all these other things, we know that it was totally conspiracy. There's no other word for it. They knew exactly what they're doing, And yet we still don't quite see the outrage as widespread as you would think it should be. And I wonder if that's because it's still a little hard for some parts of the public to grasp that narrative. And so I think Flanagan really just, you know, just leveled the playing field and just drove it home there, by showing them the mountain of bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so easy to place the blame on the users that it does deflect some of what we deal with people like the Sacklers. And so yeah, I think it was refreshing to see this very direct, like, let's just point it at the people who placed the loaded gun in everyone's hands and said, it's okay, just it's fine, don't worry about it, here's a loaded gun, it's safe.
Right. It's hard. I mean, and you guys know this as horror writers sometimes. It's hard to point out something. On one hand, you think, oh, it's so obvious. How can I tell this in a story? And yet it's so frustrating because it doesn't seem to be obvious. The point seems to get missed. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a big part of what I tried to do with Fiend. To just, I was frustrated. It seems like we live in an era where people just lie, cheat, and steal right in front of our faces. We know they're doing it, and yet people aren't pointing at them and saying that. And it made me think, what needs to happen? Like that the actual devil would sprout up in a plume of smoke next to this person and give him a big old hug. You know what I mean? And that
Mhm.
scene was sort of Flanagan being able to do that for the Sacklers.
Yeah. By the way, just going back a couple of episodes, I really did love the picture of Verna next to a certain president.
I did too.
That really made it click. I'm looking at seeing the other pictures where they have her in with all these other historical figures, and some of them they're not all evil, right? Some of them are people that we might consider to have had a moral compass at some point. But as soon as they slipped that in, and it was fast because they dropped like a file or something over that part of the picture, probably fearing retribution. Um, it was like unmistakable that you just knew at that point. Nope, she's the devil selling Faustine bargains.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to collect a little sooner rather than later, but
Right. But he's still paying out, so
true.
what are you
True,
gonna do?
true.
Yep. Anything else we want to say? Kind of just to wrap up our thoughts on the series. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I mean, the soundtrack is just killer all the way through. The
Total
kills,
eclipse of the
roast.
heart.
Yeah.
Oh
No.
man, I laughed at that one.
I did too. I loved it. I love a little pun or that kind of thing.
I mean, it's hard to not laugh at Total Eclipse of the Heart, especially. Have either of you seen the music video for that
Oh
that
yeah.
song?
Yeah.
It is wild.
I remember when it came out, but that was the time. They were still breaking a lot of new ground, and they didn't realize how stupid some of this stuff would look in 30 years.
But still, just like a bunch of schoolboys with glowing eyes flying around. Really, there's just something about that in that music video.
You mean your students don't do that?
No, definitely not.
Maybe that's why it resonates with you more, because
Just
you're
yeah,
just waiting.
something satisfying about weird semi-vampiric children.
Wish fulfillment for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean there were a lot of things that we've gone over, all the plus points. But I guess I would want to say, just as much as I enjoyed it, for me as a writer, there were things that I might have done differently. And,
Yeah.
and one was it was so sprawling. Like I would have reduced the number of family members, for instance. And also, I mean, I can understand why he did it, that he felt like he had to have all those references to Poe material put in it. But to me, it just kind of made it a bit overwrought. Like I ended up looking for connections that weren't there. And so
Yeah.
kind of question sometimes, was it just for the sake of getting that that title of a story in or something like that.
I agree. I feel like I love the idea how it was tying a lot of the Poe stories together, but like, does the lawyer need to be Arthur Pym? Does that actually add anything?
Right.
Not really. Um, yeah, I just feel like it was so chock full of it all that it was kind of like, oh, okay, like if we had toned it back 20% in terms of the Poe references, it would have felt a lot more cohesive and tight to me.
Yeah,
It
I
would have
think
felt like its own story rather than, see, look, I read all the Poe ones.
yeah, it could have been a little bit more cohesive and coherent, I think. I mean, it was super ambitious. I give him credit for that, but in a
Mhm.
way, I almost felt like it was a little over the top in that respect. And visually, it was over the top too. So I wasn't sure what he was going for. Maybe just being over the top was the point.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what I was getting into. I felt like I kind of knew what to expect from Flanagan stories, Flanagan series, and this was more horror comedy than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
Because yeah, it definitely how goofy and over the top it gets at times. It really does feel like it's much more ranging into some of the comedy satire side of things. Which yeah, I didn't expect. I wasn't opposed to it. I felt like it ended up working really well. But yeah, I think the first couple of episodes, the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then once I kind of got my head wrapped around, hey, this is more Evil Dead than um, you know, Haunting of Hill House, then I was more okay with how over the top the gore and everything was.
mm,
But yeah,
Yeah,
tonally very different than a lot of his other work.
yeah,
I would say this series is my favorite of his, with Midnight Mass being second favorite. Um, the things, yeah, I loved Verna. Like, she played what, 10 plus different characters, like flawlessly, seamlessly. Um, and then another thing that I quite liked is I thought that Flanagan did a great job with like queer representation as well as people of color. And it was just like a fact. It wasn't like a storyline. It wasn't a big deal. It just was.
yeah.
And I appreciated that greatly. Um, the medical inconsistencies were probably my biggest gripe, and it's hard to sometimes get right unless you legitimately like consult people that's their field. So I'll give him a little slack on it, but
Well, and at some point as a writer, you just, you've done all this research and you're just like, I'm exhausted. I'm just gonna, wing it
yeah.
with
Yeah,
something. So,
yeah. You can definitely spend too much time researching to the point that you're just gonna stand in your own way of actually getting the story written.
all right, I need to have this work. Damn it. I'm just gonna force it through.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right. So, should we rate this thing? So, yeah, we always like to put things on a scale of 1 to 10, both for screams and crowns. So, how scary is this versus how enjoyable is it? Is this just a good piece or not? So, I guess I can kick us off. So, scream wise, I'd say this is a solid 5. It definitely gave me more of the ick side of horror than the I am scared, but it did definitely dip into the I'm scared several times, but more with kind of the existential dread of being paralyzed by your husband and you know things like that. That was more scary to me than a lot of the like visceral grossness.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go 6 just because of the acid rain.
Fair.
I'm telling you, watch Dante's Peak. You will not regret it.
Man, yeah, that does sound really good. Well, I also gave it a 5. I think partly also for me, the points you raised already, is that I found the supernatural element to be a little unsatisfying. Um, while they tried to weave it in, what happens at the end, and also, they maybe could have explained it a little bit better with what happened to their mother in the beginning, how she rises from the dead and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. It wasn't as coherent as I would have wanted it to be.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Crowns. So I'm going to give this a nice solid 7. I really enjoyed this series. But yeah, to me, I would say this is probably more mid-tier Flanagan for me. Meanwhile, like Midnight Mass is like a perfect 10 for me, just for context. But yeah, so it's a nice 7. I really enjoyed this series, but I'm not always, you know, I don't think I'm going to revisit it nearly as much as some of his other work.
Fair, fair. I'm going to be a little more easygoing and go with an 8. I I tend to like more over the top kind of dark humor sort of stuff, so I thought that he did a pretty nice job with that. Um, yeah.
Okay. And I also gave it a 7. Um, and maybe it's just because I'm kind of hard as a judge or whatever. I mean, I felt it was, it had a lot of strengths. It was just a couple little weaknesses in my mind,
Mhm.
not that I could do any better. It was just very ambitious. And sometimes I felt it was getting away from it a little bit, but overall, visually, the acting, the cinematography, all that was very good. Again, I like Midnight Mass too. That's probably my favorite Flanagan.
So good. Okay. Um, well, to wrap things up before we let you go, we'd like to share how we've all been staying spooky. Yeah, what is some horror media that you're consuming? And I could kick us off too. So, two things I wanted to highlight. I went on a binge of the series Evil, um, which I just watched it on Netflix. I guess, but I thought that the series was done, and I was just gonna watch a complete series. So I watched 3 seasons, and then found out that the 4th season is still currently being released, and I would have to have a different streaming service for that. So that kind of killed my momentum a little bit. But it's a really fun series. I really enjoy it. It definitely is an interesting concept. Basically, the Catholic Church has a team to investigate things, ranging from, hey, is this person possessed, to is this miracle occurring, or um, any sort of thing that would kind of dip into the realm of the supernatural. And so, it's a team of people going and investigating stuff. It has really great effects. It has really fun characters, great villains. Has really cool practical demons. Practical effects for demons, which I love. I love practical effects in my shows, and so it's fun. It's maybe not like the deepest or scariest show, but it's a good time. So I really enjoyed watching that. Just kind of binged it over a couple of weeks. And then the other one for me recently was The Spite House by Johnny Compton. I just finished listening to the audiobook of that, and it was a really fun, haunted house story, and is kind of bringing in the idea of spite houses, which is an interesting architectural thing that happens sometimes.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was a fun book. So both of those I would solidly recommend.
Nice, nice. Um, I have been reading The End of the World as We Know It, of which Alma has a story in. I loved it too. And I don't want to spoil your story, but I appreciate that Ruby was fine the entire time. Thank you. I was nervous. Um, but yeah, so it's a collection of short stories based on Stephen King's The Stand. So that's my like number one desert island book that I just absolutely adore. So, I pre-ordered it the second that I heard it was happening.
Oh,
Yeah, so very good job. Love it.
thank you.
And then I watched Netflix's Unknown Number, the high school catfish, which is kind of like almost a real life horror if you think about it, because
Oh yeah,
the fact that somebody's mother could do this to her daughter is insane. So you should watch it if you have not already.
I just finished it actually.
yeah, it's
Isn't it
wild.
wild? Yeah.
It is wild. But so here I'll reveal a little bit. Part of my time was spent as a SIGINT analyst, signals intelligence. And we track intelligence all based on metadata. So as this was going on, I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you people? This is what you need to do. This is how, I was like,
You're like, I could have solved this in 20 minutes.
I can't believe how long it took them. That, the resources aren't out there. They have to go all the way to the FBI, and it still took them like fucking forever to figure it out. And then the very last scene where they're confronting the mother, and you just see what a broken creature she is.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
I can't help but think too that like if this was a man that was sending these texts to like an underage girl, like it would be a lot more of a different outrage than it was. Like I think that was kind of glossed over.
Yeah, I did they say what happened to her? Did she end up doing jail time or?
Yeah, she did like 18 months or something.
Yeah. Man,
Felt
yeah.
like it could have been more, but whatever.
That poor family. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, both of those families were just so broken by what she was doing.
yeah. But you can imagine what must have been going on inside that family, though, for her to do that to her daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, the need that she had within herself, but boy, that poor girl, she's just going to be messed up the rest of her life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, after the documentary came out, she has done some interviews and stuff since then because it's been, I guess, a year or two since then. And she's like, yeah, actually, I don't really associate with my mom very much anymore at all. And she's going into criminology. And she's like, yeah, that's for a good reason because, things happen to me and I don't want this to happen to anyone else. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, she
She's
seemed to have her
using
head
that.
together. So,
So,
yeah. And anyway, just to finish things off, we don't watch a lot of horror in this house, which may seem weird, but my husband really is like more into science fiction, so it's hard to. And there's so many science fiction shows out there now. It's sort of hard to get him off of that. But I also was reading The End of the World as We Know It, and was just amazed at the stories that my fellow contributors came up with. Just some really amazing stuff to expand the world of The Stand. And it was such a privilege to be involved in this project, which is a historic project. I mean, like 45 years after it came out, to be able to do it. And Stephen King ended up being much more involved than the two editors who were the ones who came up with the idea had envisioned, and it became a New York Times bestseller, so I can't argue with that.
yeah.
So good. The one story that really gut wrenched me was Jonathan Jantz's Lenora. Oh my god.
Yes, and that's been getting a big call out too from all quarters. And the funny thing is Jonathan and I were paired to do a podcast, the Talking Scared podcast, and so I got to read it in advance. And we went through it on the podcast, and I said it's like a perfect story. He did a perfect story there. Yeah.
Yeah, I showed up to work because I read it right before I went to work, and I cried naturally. And everybody's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just crying about a deer. It's fine."
Let me put this guy's guts back in.
Yeah, it's fine.
Wow. Well, hey guys, this has been a lot of fun. Again, my apologies for making you watch 8 hours of a show.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Before we let you go, where can people find you?
Well, the best way is to subscribe to my newsletter, which is on Substack. Because as you guys know, social media is really bad. The algorithms now, they really don't push stuff out to people anymore. So it's hard to find me. But if you just go to Substack and look for ALMAKATSU and subscribe, I would really appreciate it.
And also go buy Fiend. It's freaking rad. And also all of the other books. Especially
Thank you.
Well, thank you. You entertain me, and it's not very often that I sit down and like read a book in like one sitting, and you delivered on a book that could do that. So
thank you very much. That's exactly what I'd hope to hear.
Yeah,
well,
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, and to all of our listeners out there, stay spooky.
Stay spooky.